You ask what is our policy? I will say it is to wage war by sea, land and air, with all our might and with all the strength that God can give us, to wage war against a monstrous tyranny never surpassed in the dark and lamentable catalogue of human crime. That is our policy. You ask, what is our aim? Victory. Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror. Victory however long and hard the road may be. For without victory there is no survival.
We have stopped by the lovely new Paradox offices here in Stockholm to learn more about a game that we've been talking about for a while now, and you've been working on even longer, I guess, than we've talked about it. Hearts of Iron 4. First of all, give us where's it at right now? What's going on?
So yeah, right now we passed beta now, which means that we're working on polish and we're working on balance mainly. So we're kind of nearing the end now.
All right. Sounds good, because you have sort of teased us with dates, then you've pushed it back a little bit. What was the reason there that you sort of said, we need more time on this, we need to sort of, what kind of things were it that you felt weren't just right?
Well, there was a few things. Mainly we just felt that we needed to really push the quality of the entire game. And that meant putting in much more time on polish, on existing interfaces and features. And also we've added a couple of features that didn't really work out before. For example, we've added something called the National Focus System, which is a tree system to kind of give you the idea of how World War II pans out, even alt history paths as well, which was something kind of missing before. We had something in that direction, but there was no good overview. So it was hard for players who were not completely familiar with World War II or previous Hearts of Iron to sort of get how to get from point A to B, to say.
Okay. So I see it's more like a framework that you can sort of refer to and see where you want to head and sort of focus in that area, instead of sort of being intimately familiar with the minute mechanics, perhaps. Yeah,
I mean, to give you an example, it's like people might know about when the invasion of Poland happened, for example, but they might not know in exact order of steps things led up to that. So the joining of Austria and taking Czechoslovakia, for example, people know that they happened, but maybe not exactly how. So this gives you a visual view of that, so you can actually see the steps leading to where you want to go. We have this for alternate history scenarios where you, for example, instead of doing that, you might take an earlier detour and actually make a deal with Poland and things like that.
Interesting. So it's things that has already always been in the game as potential, but now it's perhaps more sort of laid out there so that people can make a decision, an informed decision, even though they're not that familiar with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of them, one of the ideas. And the other one is just we've really fleshed them out size-wise now, so they feel like a much bigger part of the game, which is great.
All right. You also talked about sort of overall polish. What kind of... I mean, obviously, this is something that's afforded to you because you can afford to delay a game and you don't have to push it out before it's done. What kind of thing and what kind of testing goes on now to sort of ensure that you get there?
Well, we've taken in a bigger wave of beta testers. This is a mix of new players and people that we know have tested our previous games. So we're getting a lot of feedback and have time to work on that. And generally more time to play. As you play the game yourself as well, you notice new things, that players will notice after a couple of weeks of playing. And this just means that you have time to go back and fix all that. And especially when there's bigger things where you go like, no, this interface doesn't work at all, and you want to kind of redesign the whole interface. That's hard to do if you don't do a bigger delay.
Almost like, I mean, I know your strategy of DLCs. It almost feels like when Hearts of Iron 4 releases, it releases with sort of like a couple of DLCs built in that you sort of otherwise would have worked into it.
Yeah, I think that's basically, I mean, we're a bigger company now and we can afford to do these things. So instead of releasing something with more bugs and less iteration polish, now we can actually delay that. So I think what this will actually lead to is new DLC. So if you compare it to, say, Hearts 3, the first couple were a very large part of them were fixing problems rather than adding new cool stuff. So I think what you'll see for Hearts 4 is that instead we'll have more cool stuff rather than having to fix things.
So I understand you do these multiplayer tests in the studio. Can you tell us a little bit about that process and how it happens and who's involved? And
all right, yeah. So this is kind of a thing we've been doing for years. We have usually on Tuesdays. It used to be. Now that we develop several games at once,
it's every day.
Yeah, it's almost every day. The big one is still the EU4 multiplayer, where people have put all their prestige and stuff into it, because that's the one that's been running the longest. We run the Hearts 1 on Wednesdays, and we usually do little different things. So sometimes we'll decide, like, you guys have to be the allied block, you guys are going to be the axis block, and then we'll have you guys are going to be the neutrals that can shift sides. Or we might have, like, all the QA who are going to be the best at the game. You guys are going to play the allies and try to stop the developers playing the Axis side. And
there's all sorts of alliances going on in the week leading up to the next.
Yeah, if you miss like a lunch train, people might team up against you. We also have some really funny ones where people have been playing two people in the same country. So one person has been basically running the Soviet Union, and one guy has been playing the general on the front line. And they've sort of been limiting what they're allowed to do. So you actually get them arguing quite loudly in the office when the offensive is not going as planned, and the general is blaming the leader for...
Very realistic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly like it happened.
Yeah, so there's a lot of emotion. It gets really fun in the multiplayer tests.
It sounds great. And do you have like a frame of like a launch window in mind, or are you still sort of like when we feel ready we'll announce it?
It's definitely when we feel ready. I have a little mental one, but we're not going to say anything until we completely lock in this time, because we really don't want to disappoint people by moving any dates ever again. So this one, when we say it, it's going to stick. So we want to make 100% sure we deliver on the exact that date when we say it.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.